Well, here's a piece of history. This is the first ever Kam differentials locker. This is air operated. They started with air, they moved across to electrics and solenoids. Everyone else went to air. These are very rare now due to being A, low production, and B, probably 25 plus years old. The system works by having what is in effect a standard differential. It's actually built up with forged crosspin, very strong internally. The outer unit here, as you can see, which is the locking end flange, is absolutely huge. It is massively over-engineered, and on the end of this dry flange is this locking dog arrangement with teeth that are in two different bites, so you get first engagement and then full engagement. This unit here, which has been replaced, it was a special part from Kam, and it's nothing more than an ordinary adjuster ring that's machined out to give enough clearance for the locking rod that goes in. And what happens is, in here is your long half shaft, and this half shaft has a very, very long spline on it. It is one of the Achilles heels, because when this unit was made, metals weren't of the sort of grades and quality that they are now, and if you overload it, you can actually twist these splines, and the dog, as I'll show you in a minute, runs along these splines and locks onto here. So if you twist the splines, you'll find that it will. So this is a fairly Neanderthal, heavy duty, strongly built locker. This is the locking mechanism, which, as you can see, is reasonably substantial. This has obviously had some major repair in the end, but if I put it next to the diff, you'll see just how big it is. And this here is your locking panel that locks on there. And what happens is, on this long spline you have a air system which is welded to the top of the diff, which I'll show. So this unit here, which is a very large shaped plate, probably getting on for about 1 inch thick, again fairly heavy duty, and also shaped to the axle casing. This one's been removed from a casing ready to go onto a new one. This sits on the axle casing, and then there's an air actuating unit which goes on top of there, and this locking mechanism goes into there, and then what happens is the air goes into this and forces the unit to fire and push this incredibly long heavy dog clutch along the spline shafts, locking the unit. Now these usually came with their own pump. These have often died, and what now happens is a lot of people will connect these to an ARB. It works perfectly well. This is a special casting that was made by Kam, and this bolts straight on to the unit, which has got threaded bolts, and that goes onto the top of the casing. So really there are no small delicate parts. It is a seriously over-engineered unit, and to be perfectly fair with you, with the forged cross shaft and everything else, seeing these break is very rare. What tends to happen is, if you do too much crash engaging, as with any locking differential, this end spline here gets very damaged. We have actually repaired one of those by chopping off a locking end flange off a later locker and welding it all back together. Also the forks, if the unit's not kept in decent condition, which isn't the unit's fault, the forks can bend, the spring can break, but really these things are almost indestructible. The long spline shaft being probably the bit that's going to give the biggest problem nowadays, but you could actually have a spline made in 300M. These are really good for most off-roading. I would say, you don't really want to go 31 tyre size or bigger if you're using the standard shafts. Kevin did actually have a very few aerospace grade shafts made in about 2010, particularly for people who like these and wanted something stronger on the shaft wise, and obviously with the new metals coming out, that was the case. But this one came into us for a full clean up and rebuild, and because of its rarity and the fact he wants to keep it in one piece, we've pegged it as well. And it's also, as you'll see, got one of our new XS 4x4 flanges on for the keeping the dirt out at that end. So there you go. That is a very rare unit, Kam Air Locker. Bye for now.